2016 passed. Eventually, something was signed around 2017 or so. And again, top spin in mud. And we came to a point where a new government came into office last year. And on my desk in front of me, you got to do something about this matter, Minister, because we're in danger of losing the money. 20 million United States dollars here. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, you know, it is a happy thing to have a Prime Minister who understands the meaning of the word urgency, who understands the meaning of the words galvanizing your intentions and abilities. And that is what we had to do, Mr. Speaker, sir, so as to ensure that we brought to fruition these discussions with the IADB and framing the way in which we were going to spend the money. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, we passed that stage of discussion. We have refashioned the loan because part and parcel of the components of the loan, it had three components, sir. One was to diversify the tourism product via new heritage and cultural emphasis. So you were going to change our tourism product or develop it by placing a greater emphasis on heritage and a greater emphasis on culture. Those are two words, sir, for some people which are seen as bad words. They're like curse words in Barbados for some people. My reading, my understanding of the research done, my understanding of the studies that have been done suggests to me that people who are traveling nowadays in large measure are seeking what they call immersive and authentic experiences in the country where they visit. They want, in other words, Mr. Speaker, sir, in very simple language, they want to come to Barbados and immerse themselves in what Bajans do for a living as part of our culture. They want to understand what we eat and how we prepare what we eat. They want to understand, Mr. Speaker, sir, what sports we play, how long we've been playing them, who's the people that play them best. They want to understand, Mr. Speaker, sir, the things we do for recreation and do a little bit of those things too. That is how they want to have an experience. And as I said to you, sir, every time they are able to feel and sample that experience, they pull out a cell phone and you take a selfie and you post it on Instagram, etc., and the rest is history. You're sharing it with the world, you know? Festive Friday, first night, I came across a group of 20 people from off of Freedom of the Seas ship. It was about 20 odd, some black Americans, Mr. Speaker, sir. And they insisted that we come in the road with them as they did they put together there and then. I could only call it a production, but it was for Facebook purposes. So that they could tell the world, tell their friends back home, they are in Barbados and they're having the time of their lives and they're here with the minister and the stilt walkers and the steel pan and the drummers and the girls dancing. And they were fascinated by the thing and to be here, part and parcel of it. And as they were experiencing it, sir, they were posting and they were putting online all that they were experiencing, real time. Mr. Speaker, sir, before the ship left at 11 o'clock that night, folks back home had it and felt envious. That's what this is about. So we're talking about bringing heritage and cultural emphasis to the diversification of the tourism product. The second part, Mr. Speaker, sir, was about airlift. And I put a red line through that and subsequently went to Cabinet and asked Cabinet to agree, which Cabinet has done, that we can get out that. Because the thinking back then was that you take money, take good money, hard-earned money, and you put it in the hands of an airline like Gol that was flying here from Brazil. And you drop it in the hand as an MRG, minimum revenue guarantee, and you pay for empty seats back and forward. Because the airline ain't losing nothing. They have no skin in the game. They have no stake in the process. You pay them for the seat. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, this is a process that has not come. I don't blame anybody because apparently this is how it evolved. But it defies what I consider to be logic and common sense. Mr. Speaker, sir, we went to Berlin and we met with folks in Lufthansa. And Lufthansa is a business airline, specializing in business travel, emphasizing the quality of their business class. Well, we said to them, We need connections out of Europe. And behind the gateway in Frankfurt, you are the most powerful of players to be found anywhere in continental Europe. You're bigger than Air France, you're bigger than British Airways, you're the biggest. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, sir, they said, well, you've come to us at a timely point, because, quite frankly, we are engaging in some thought about leisure travel ourselves. And we came to an arrangement where they will build out a leisure travel platform. They will rebrand a company which operates under the Lufthansa banner called Eurowings, and they will retrofit the planes so that they will be able to put in a business compartment in it, because they didn't have a business compartment before, and they will do a platform of leisure travel, and there will be two countries that benefit initially, Barbados and Mauritius. So that for the first time in the history, Mr. Speaker, of you and I and anybody else in this region, a scheduled flight under the Lufthansa codes, under the Lufthansa banner, under the Lufthansa marketing power will be brought to Barbados beginning October of this year, so as to connect us with the world's largest airline behind the most powerful gateway that they have. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, in that arrangement, there's not a word said about a minimum revenue guarantee, because they have broken out on a mission that they understand is about development. We are on a mission that we understand is about development. And we've said to them, look, if you have skin in this game, then you will be inclined in our estimation. We're not accusing you of any bad faith, but in our estimation, if you have some skin in this game, if you've got something to lose, Star, then you will work a little bit harder to make sure that this new project can work. And certainly we want it to work for us. So you don't have to doubt yourself. We want the traffic out of Germany and out of Europe more widely. And they said, look, this makes sense. Don't put any minimum revenue guarantee. We will do joint marketing. We will collaborate on the marketing. We will find a commonality in terms of our marketing program, etc. But what we will do is to commit ourselves to a partnership with you for 3 years, beginning from October. And Mr. Speaker, so that's where we are. And we went with Caribbean Airlines. The Prime Minister, in her wisdom, from day one, was saying to me, Minister, we need to get more deeply involved with Jamaica. A lot of traffic between Jamaica and Barbados. Well, to be honest with you, I went and checked behind her, because as I said, I do everything scientifically. I go and test, we get called for the market analysis. And she's right. A lot of traffic. And last month or month before, we entered into an arrangement with Caribbean Airlines, a direct flight to Jamaica twice weekly. And the fact of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, sir, they are now the partner for us for cropover. And that's what brought Marshal Montano. We had to bring Marshal Montano here. They brought him here to help promote the relationship last week, Mr. Speaker, sir, at the same festive Friday. So that we are not, and we did a similar revision, but albeit we had to do it to a lesser degree with COPA. So that, Mr. Speaker, sir, the 3 new initiatives that came to fruition under this administration do not reflect this MRG thing that the last administration was committing itself to, just paying out money to keep a seat. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, we took a position that we were striking that off of the Inter-American Development Bank discussions, and we would replace it, $5 or so million, with more emphasis on product development for Barbados. And where that product development could go, Mr. Speaker, sir, things that we need to be able to showcase to the world. We are the home. It might not be such a spectacular team, especially after Bangladesh trunked us yesterday, but we, sir, are the home of some of the finest in cricketing history in the world. And we have a Legends Museum, Mr. Speaker, sir. But if you go to the Legends Museum, and every time we got a large cricket event taking place, and sometimes not even when you have that, just when you got British guests in the island, they want to go down there and to see the museum and to see what it is in the museum, because they are captivated. Reverend Wes Hall, Sir Wesley Hall, rather. Sir Charles Griffith, Mr. Speaker, sir. Desmond Haynes, Gordon Greenwich, they too should be carrying the thing. They should be carrying the title, sir, as well. They should be knighted as well. All in good time. And Mr. Speaker, sir, you could go on and on and on. You know? And you could go on and on. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, when you go into that museum, and it is well-intentioned, but we got to bring it into the 21st century. You know, we are seeing it is like my old scrapbook. You get some of the newspaper clippings, you cut it up and you post it on the wall. And it is simply not good enough. It is part and parcel of the heritage of the country. It is part and parcel of the history of the country. They are living and natural assets that we have. And Mr. Speaker, sir, we must so position ourselves as to be in a position where we can offer to the rest of the world a better and improved and enhanced experience with regard to that. So that's the kind of thing that we intend to do with the additional marketing funds that we would get out of the Inter-American Development Bank $20 million loan. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, the other thing about it is that for a long time, we have been talking in this country about a UNESCO World Heritage Site for a long, long time. I don't know, Mr. Speaker, sir, how much longer the plan was to talk about it. You got to do something about marketing it now. And this means development of the chain of the network of tunnels that are underneath George Washington House and the Garrison Savannah, and going out, Mr. Speaker, sir, to the beaches and out to the Defense Force, etc. Mr. Speaker, sir, I believe that I should give way at this stage and ask for leave to proceed again.
You ready, Priya?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg to move the postponement of this report.
Question is that we postpone further consideration of this report. All those in favor say aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, revert to statements by ministers.
Statement. Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to give a statement on a matter which has been raised by concerned citizens of Barbados over the course of the last few weeks. The increase of land tax rates for those properties valued above $450,000 has resulted in complaints from some. Sir, in the 2019 budget speech, I announced that the land tax rate for properties valued between $450,000 to $850,000 would be increased from 0.45% to 0.7%, and the rate on properties valued above $850,000 would be increased from 0.75% to 1%. For the avoidance of doubt, sir, I refer to residential properties. At the same time, we indicated that the first $150,000 in value of a property will still not be taxed, and that there would be no increase in taxes for properties between $150,000 and $450,000. So what this means is that the land tax on all properties below $450,000 has not increased. In other words, there is no increase in land tax for 63,618 properties in Barbados out of a total of 81,932 properties in the island. For almost 64,000 properties, there has been no increase in land tax. It means, sir, that the land tax on property owned by most Barbadians, tens of thousands of Barbadians, has not increased. Mr. Speaker, the police constable, the postal worker, the school meals worker, the teacher, the nurse, the immigration officer, the port worker, and I can go on and on and on. All of these people have not seen an increase in their land tax in this country. However, the change in land tax rates, sir, does affect some Barbadians. The increase on residential properties has been on 17,314 residential properties, just over 17,000 properties. With the additional disposable income, Mr. Speaker, to be delivered through the reduction in income tax rates as of next month, in a few weeks' time, and then again, a further reduction in January next year, the owner of a home valued more than $450,000 and with an income of $75,000 as a salary, that person will pay approximately $4,375 less in income tax in a full fiscal year. It therefore means that for most property owners, Mr. Speaker, the decrease in income tax will be significantly larger than any increase in land tax charged to any person owning a property over $450,000. The decrease, the reduction in the amount of income tax being paid will be significantly more than what the government is asking persons to pay in land tax above that amount. For most property owners, sir, this will be fine. But there will still be some taxpayers who require intervention for reasons that are peculiar. In response to the change in land tax rates, sir, we have heard that that will mean that some Barbadians are still hurting. Some have let their voices be heard and have asked for a little bit of ease with the payment of this land tax. Mr. Speaker, sir, this government, my government, has taken the time to listen to the cry and to act where we can. In my 2019 budget speech, I asked that as a people, as a nation, that we stay the course. We all knew it would not be easy, but my government is determined that we share the burden fairly and that no group will be unduly affected by the measures which we are implementing. Because of this, sir, we have created a framework to make it easier on those ordinary Barbadians to pay their land tax bills over a longer period of time. And what is it? We will be facilitating payment in installments. One, that there has also been an issue about an outcry, sir, about the early issue date of these bills and the comparatively shorter discount periods for taxpayers to take advantage of. That has not been the case, sir. I would like to remind the public through you, sir, that the land tax payments are always due before March 31st in the financial year in which they are issued. For the avoidance of doubt, or to make it absolutely clear, once you pay before March 31st, 2020, because the financial year starts on April 1st, you will not be subject to any penalty or any interest. So you always have until March 31st to pay your bill. This year is no different. In other words, sir, the due date has not changed. Secondly, sir, previously land tax bills would have been issued in September, which would have actually given you a shorter period of time to pay your bill between September and March 31st. We took the deliberate decision to be able to issue the bills in the end of May to give you a full 10 months to be able to make your way to being able to pay the bills rather than being forced to do so within that 6-month period. Previously, we acknowledged that there was a 10% discount if paid 30 days before, respective, and 10 and 5% discount if paid 30 and 60 days respectively after the date of the issuance of the bill. Given the challenging circumstances facing the country, we chose to offer only the 5% discount this year instead of the 10% discount as well. And I think that we made that clear when I spoke to the country in the budget, that only the 5% discount would be available for early payment this year as a discount. Mr. Speaker, sir, having consulted with the relevant persons, we have taken the decision to allow taxpayers to enter into an arrangement with the Barbados Revenue Authority, which will allow you to pay your land tax in up to 4 installments. This arrangement, sir, will allow persons to better plan the payment of their taxes and allow Barbadians to pay over a longer period of time, because hitherto you paid your land tax once and for all in whatever month that you paid it. Similarly, it will allow many to benefit from the increase in disposable income that will come from significant income tax relief from next month, once that relief comes, to be able to help them pay what land tax is due and owing. My government, sir, has agreed to extend the discount, therefore, to even more Barbadians by allowing them to retain the discount of 5% once they enter into the installment arrangements before July 26 next month. So long as the first payment starts before July 26, you can use that opportunity to pay your land taxes in up to 4 equal installments from this year going forward. Mr. Speaker, although we may and we must continue and will make difficult choices in adhering to the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Plan, we must always listen to the public, and there must always be room for empathy and compromise in our decisions. As it relates to the existing rebates, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to remind this Honourable House that there are several provisions currently in place for land tax rebates. 1, the agricultural sector; 2, the hotel sector; and 3, pensioners, all already receive rebates on the land tax calculated, as we have long recognized as a nation that these groups especially require that we treat specially to their unique needs. Sir, the agricultural sector has been recognized as one which would be distinctly disadvantaged by paying the full amount of land tax. Farming, more often than not, requires substantial areas of land, whether this land is used for rearing or raising a few sheep, or to plant some sweet potatoes or bananas or yams. Hotels often own substantial property in recognition in the country. In recognition of this, sir, entities within this sector are given a 50% rebate in the tourism sector. In the agricultural sector, farmers registered with the Ministry of Agriculture are given a 50% rebate. And as it relates to landowners who are pensioners, sir, we acknowledge that on a fixed income, pensioners may not be in a position to pay the full amount of land tax. And for this reason, sir, the Barbados Revenue Authority typically grants a rebate of 60% in the amount of land tax that is due on properties on which pensioners reside. There is, in spite of this 60% rebate, still available to a pensioner, or anyone for that matter, further relief upon a case being made to the Land Tax Relief Board, which seeks to provide relief, Mr. Speaker, where there is undue hardship in the application of land taxes to anyone in this country. So any Barbadian is free to apply so long as they can make a case of undue hardship. But we want to go further, sir. We today acknowledge that there may be some Barbadians, including pensioners, who purchase property as an investment for their children or grandchildren. These persons, Mr. Speaker, are seeking to leave a legacy for their children and grandchildren. And we as a government, and more importantly, as a political party, philosophically support this as we seek to enfranchise our citizens in the building of a property-owning democracy. Mr. Speaker, we do not choose to have inherited, or we did not choose to have inherited these circumstances. and therefore we recognize that for the burden to be shared fairly, we can exclude no class nor no group in the adjustment to stabilize this country. As a government, sir, and as a political party, we believe that Barbadians who have worked tirelessly to build this country up should be commended for their willingness to own property and to leave it as a platform for wealth for the next generation. It is no small thing, sir, to recognize the great contribution that can be made in the lives of the next generation of your children by purchasing such properties and providing them with a measure of financial security as they start out their adult lives. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, we have laid out a framework to treat to these cases. And that is why, sir, even in the original tax framework that we set out in the last budget, we excluded properties under $450,000 in value. And we did so, excluding by extension, almost 64,000 properties. Mr. Speaker, sir, what we didn't do was to exclude or provide special insulation for vacant lands under $450,000. And today, sir, I announce that any person owning vacant property which is valued under $450,000 will now attract a 10% discount on the amount of land tax that they will have to pay to the Barbados Revenue Authority. I want to repeat it, sir. Any person owning vacant lands which is valued under $450,000 will now attract a 10% discount on the amount of land tax to be charged by BRA. In the instance where a person has already paid their tax on these vacant lands and a credit exists, such credit will be applied by the Barbados Revenue Authority to your next land tax bill. Mr. Speaker, sir, this means that 95% of all of the vacant lots in this country will now attract this 10% discount. Or to put it another way, there will only be 1,870 vacant lots that will not benefit from this 10% discount. With almost, Mr. Speaker, I believe near 35,000 lots benefiting from the 10% discount. In plain terms, sir, the 10% discount is unlikely to be available primarily to commercial vacant lots. And we already know, Mr. Speaker, that companies have already received significant savings from the corporation tax relief that has been announced, and thus can carry this increased burden without further discount being made available to them. Mr. Speaker, this provision will allow those thousands of Barbadians who own these vacant lots to receive a further ease, bearing in mind, as I've said to you, that almost 64,000 of the 81,000 properties were already excluded by the government by never being brought in to any increase in the land tax regime when we announced the budget in March of this year. Sir, these accommodations have been deemed a necessary response to the voices of Barbadians crying out for help on the issue of land tax. We are listening to the Barbadian public. And sir, where we have to make adjustments to prevent some Barbadians from being disadvantaged more than others, we will do so. It is the same thing that we did with respect to the volume discount with relation to bus fares. It is the reason, sir, that our entire approach to this program from the beginning has been that the burden of the adjustment must be shared fairly and equitably. And it has been. Those who are being asked to contribute through adjustments to land tax are also those who will benefit significantly from lower income taxes from July and then again in January, and who are already in other instances receiving corporation tax reductions. Mr. Speaker, sir, we will not blindly adhere to policies which are unbearable for our people. We have a mandate to adhere to the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Plan. But, Mr. Speaker, the BERT plan was designed to provide stability and recovery for our economy. and we shall, sir, do so with fairness and with equity always. I'm obliged to you.
You're obliged.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, we revert to government business in order number 7 in the name of the Honourable Minister of Tourism and International Transport to resume debate on the passing of a resolution that the Parliament of Barbados take note of the final report of the National Cruise Development Commission.
Member for St. James Central.
Obliged to you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Well, Mr. Deputy Speaker, prior to the intervention of the Honourable Prime Minister, I was at the point, sir, where we were looking at the UNESCO World Heritage, the matter of the UNESCO World Heritage Site. And as you know, Mr. Speaker, sir, the award of a UNESCO World Heritage Site was given to Barbados well in excess of 4 or 5 years before the change of government. And Mr. Speaker, sir, the reality is that there has come a time, and there had to come a time, and characteristic with what transpired in the last administration, it has fallen to this administration, for us to deal decisively with this matter of our World Heritage Site. It is not acceptable in my judgment, sir, that you are given a golden opportunity such as this. And I want to say why it is a golden opportunity, sir, because in a real sense, it recognizes a global, or it represents a global recognition of some aspect, sir, of your country, whether it is a heritage phenomena, whether it is, sir, a natural environment phenomena. It represents a global recognition of some aspect of your country as having exceptional worth. And sir, we are among very few who can be identified as having benefited from a UNESCO World Heritage designation, but done nothing with it. And Mr. Speaker, sir, it is a disgrace. And frankly, I believe that it is necessary for this country now to use this opportunity, especially in as much as so much time has already passed, to rescue our image and our reputation from the situation where we now are in. If you want me to speak to it in purely touristic purposes, cruise tourism purposes, Mr. Speaker, it is a fact that Carnival Cruise Lines has not now, but for perhaps over 5 years, been doing tours to UNESCO World Heritage Sites around the world. It is, Mr. Speaker, sir, part and parcel of how we have decided to just leave money on the table. You don't develop the UNESCO World Heritage Site. Therefore, you cannot market the UNESCO World Heritage Site properly because there's really little or nothing on offering in terms of a developed tourism product. But yet still there are entities out there that are organizing tours to heritage sites globally. That these cruises are organized so that you come and you sail to Barbados or you sail to the Galapagos Islands or wherever else you go to, and you experience that which is a World Heritage experience. But sir, we decide that don't matter to us. That's not a priority for us. There ain't nothing in that for us. And at a minimum, it should be that this country's heritage, that this country's culture means enough to the people in Barbados that there should be a cry of concern. And it should mean enough to an administration that led Barbados or that leads Barbados that it is something that we got to do something about. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, the reality is that we have to have a serious discussion about this part of it. We have come to the point in the Ministry of Tourism where the staffing of the project execution unit is now taking place. We have changed the execution agency from where it was designated to be originally, which was the Barbados Tourism Investment Inc. When the negotiations first were done, the BTII, the Tourism Investment Inc., would have led those negotiations and discussions. It is no longer part of the Ministry of Tourism, though it still retains the designation Tourism Investment. It is part of the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Investment. And the fact of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, sir, that we have to be in a position to look after the daily operational activities of the execution of a project to develop our historic Bridgetown and garrison, Mr. Speaker. Now, I take the philosophical position that the development of historic Bridgetown and its garrison, Mr. Speaker, must be a project that takes along with it the people who live in the city of Bridgetown. It must be a project, Mr. Speaker, sir, that empowers the people who live in the city of Bridgetown. It must be a project, Mr. Speaker, sir, that enfranchises the people who live in the city of Bridgetown. I do not now just say that because I'm standing here, sir. I walk in the same way that I speak. When we began Festive Friday, as the Honourable Member for the City can bear me out on, by going to him and asking him to identify some persons who would walk with the persons from the Ministry of Tourism and the Barbados Tourism Marketing Incorporated, primarily the BTMI, because it was the view of a few that walking about trying to find people from the city to participate was not necessarily that which they were engaged to do. And you're entitled to have that view. I be real. You're entitled to have that view. But I am entitled to say in here that I disagree with the view. And that we are in this together. And we are in this together. And you know, there are some people who feel that tourism can be practiced from inside the office. And that tourism can be practiced by putting on a nice suit or a nice dress and thing, and it can't work that way. You got to go there, you got to be understanding what the people are offering and can offer. And so we went through districts neighboring, Mr. Speaker, sir, with the blessing of the Honourable Member for the City and Minister of Health, and with his guidance, because it is his constituency. And Mr. Speaker, sir, quite frankly, we were able to then find a way of involving people in that Festive Friday so that you also have a community aspect to the involvement of it. I can talk about that, but that's not what the issue is right now. The issue is the UNESCO World Heritage Site in Bridgetown. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, as we carry Barbadians on the journey, and the folks from Bridgetown must be part of that integral experience, there are some things that have to happen. First of all, it is deemed to be necessary that we have a visitor interpreting center. And we want to place that at the old town hall building. Why do you need an interpretive center, Mr. Speaker, sir? Because the country must have in its city, its major focal point, a place where visitors, whether they are long stay or cruise, can come and can get an understanding and an experience, an opportunity to understand what is it that Barbados has on tap to offer? What are our culinary experiences? Where are the recommended places of entertainment? What are the tourism attractions? What are the activities? What tours are available? This is your World Heritage Site. What tours are available through Bridgetown, either by day or by night? Are these tours children-friendly? Can the little children learn anything about the history of the country and the Caribbean? And if so, how are they supposed to learn it? These are the things that have to be done in a visitor's interpretive center, Mr. Speaker, sir. Then we believe that because you have a large building with 2 stories, that it can't be just the ground floor that is occupied by that, but you put some offices upstairs and call that Wally. But it should be a holistic experience that allows visitors to also sample part and parcel of the culture of the land. The National Art Gallery comes to mind. The Prime Minister is strong on this point, that we have a National Art Gallery, but it has to be housed somewhere that's easily accessible to the people who come. Some of the finest of our artists, sir, must have an opportunity either on a permanent basis or on a cyclical basis. I put my displays up for a month or two. You know, there are some young people in this country, sir, coming out of the community college and other places. When you see the artistry of these people, when you see that which they're able to create, it is breathtaking. But what government in the past has reached out into that sector and said to them, come, give us that which you have to display. We will mount an opportunity for you to put it on show and bring you an opportunity to connect and interface with the tourism, the visitor economy. But they do it in New York City. They do it in London City. They do it in Paris. They do it all around the Latin American countries, Mr. Speaker, sir. Why are our people treated in this second-hand, uncouth manner by successive administrations who are empowered and elected by the same people, but who don't make the opportunity to make sure that the people have an opportunity to benefit economically from that which they produce? So we are going to have a complete review of the way in which that old town hall building currently now operates. Beyond that, Mr. Speaker, sir, there has to be the creation of a tourist urban route traversing historic Bridgetown and its garrison. And this is where, Mr. Speaker, I say we have to take the people of the city of Bridgetown on the journey. Because you cannot, sir, have a tourist urban route which sees visitors coming through Bridgetown, walking past your house, walking past your shop, walking past, Mr. Speaker, sir, your store, your places of recreation, etc., but they ain't got nothing to do with you and you ain't got nothing to do with them. So it therefore means that some of the money that is being spent has to be about going into those alleys which some unfortunately minded people in Barbados feel should only be toilets, and cleaning them up. It means, sir, giving people in the city of Bridgetown an opportunity to use the same alleyways that are all over the city as a place, sir, where they can now have roadside cafes, food and beverage operations. They can have music and productions by day and by night. It means, sir, not just a cleaning up of Bridgetown, Mr. Speaker, sir, but it means also a lighting of Bridgetown. It means, Mr. Speaker, sir, to some extent that we're going to have a pedestrianization of parts of Bridgetown as well. And several members of this cabinet, sir, feel very strongly about that. I personally say that my own view is that, you know, I feel if I were a taxi operator, that I would want to hear that there is a government that finally comes out that recognizes that it is a waste to have me park up in a little corner somewhere, waiting for a whole day for somebody to pass by and give me a fare. When if I were able to move freely around a city that is pedestrianized and people will need the opportunity to connect to their personal transportation that they may have parked somewhere on the outskirts of the city of Bridgetown, that it would give me business all day long, all evening long. Well, I feel that that makes sense for the taxi operators, Mr. Speaker, sir. And when I talk about taking people on a journey of transformation, it means creating financial opportunities. I go back to the point. It must be that the tourism sector, which is said to be the lead sector, has to be about generating wealth, has to be about generating work, has to be about generating wages for the people of Barbados, sir. I go further, Mr. Speaker, sir. The beautification of the city must be done. You know, it puzzles me how we could be content that for a time I was a little boy, there were fountains in Bridgetown, but I've never seen one work. You go through Queen's Park, Mr. Speaker, sir, you're a little bit older than I am, and your silver hair has purchased you a good opinion. But I, sir, believe you may have seen it. I do not know, Mr. Deputy Speaker, but I have never seen a fountain in the city of Bridgetown work. But I go overseas and I see splendid fountains, beautifully decorated at night, and leaving guests with a wow factor. Oh, that is beautiful. And they stand by the fountain and they take pictures of beautiful Paris. They take pictures, Mr. Speaker, sir, in London. They take pictures all across Europe. But we walk past a fountain that got a homeless person's clothes stop over the side and some rats running about in front of it. That is how we operate, and it got to stop. Because we have to start now to take pride. This is the capital city of the country, man. And the discussion that has to take place with the Chamber of Commerce is that when we beautify Bridgetown, you're going to benefit. So I want you to come to the table and let's talk about how you can pitch in to help us beautify Bridgetown too. Because, Mr. Speaker, sir, this has to be about an opportunity for us to make a fundamental transformation in the way in which we have treated to the capital city. I hear the mourning. I hear the lamentation. Oh, the city is dying. Bridgetown is dying. This Labour Party administration, within 1 year, has been able to say to the people of Barbados, we're trying to rescue your capital city. And how so? This is one mechanism. The Prime Minister has said to the country already, Carlisle House, we want to put a hotel there so that we will have a hotel in the city of Bridgetown again. She has said, with regard to the Treasury building, she wants us to come to the point where we move out all the government offices and put that building, you ain't got to build a fresh building, you repurpose the building so that it is there for young people who want an apartment in the city of Bridgetown. And where young people are, she's quite right. There will be activity, there will be life, there will be energy, because that is the nature of the young people. The out and about every evening, the partying, they want activities to go to and engage in. Mr. Speaker, sir, we have said we have held an investment conference to look at the stimulation of economic activity along the coastline leading into the city and right across Bridgetown, so that we can have more inns, more guest houses, more hotels, more restaurants, more activity in and around the greater Bridgetown area, Mr. Speaker, sir. In addition to all of that, you have an inner basin of the Carinage, and you have to understand how you link things. We can't talk about coastal transportation, in which we want to offer a new product offering to our tourists and to our locals. A romantic person, as I'm told the leader of the opposition is, would love to take the wife out for an evening for dinner and put her in a water taxi and go along the coast from his constituency into the inner basin of the Carinage, get out, have dinner in Bridgetown, had a lovely restaurant, hop back in the water taxi and go back out by where his constituency is, Mr. Speaker. I put an idea in his head, and when he gets the reward, he will remember me. But the fact of the matter is, sir, that the fact of the matter is, sir, that the creativity of using the inner basin is yet another stop along the way for the water taxi operations that we propose is also something that must be developed, sir. And in addition to that, when we talk about furthering the product development, we come to Oistins. Because even though that is not part of historic Bridgetown and its garrison, the product development of, and I said to you, we are repurposing part of the components of this loan deliberately so that we can get more money put into product development in Barbados. In my judgment, that is where the major challenge is. Above and beyond all the other structural issues I've raised in this speech, we have to look seriously at product development in Barbados. Oistins is one such thing. It is indigenous Barbadian culture. It born from the belly of the people. It has blossomed, Mr. Speaker, organically and naturally. It is a tragedy that the people from the hotels on the South Coast started to walk a half mile, started to go to the front road and take a minibus, out of curiosity and out of interest, found their way in Oistins before the people in the hotels in the South Coast were motivated to transport them there. So that which it did for tourism, it did in spite of Barbados' tourism. Yeah, in spite of the bigwigs in Barbados' tourism. That which it did for tourism, it did in spite of the bigwigs in Barbados' tourism. But the point is, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is doing it. and must be able to continue to do it. But it can only do it if it is refreshed. And so therefore, I've met with the member for Christchurch South in Oistins. We didn't sit down in a room to all talk. We went down in Oistins, and we did a complete assessment of the thing. And we know what we got to do. He, Mr. Speaker, sir, is not being put on the spot now, but he's yet to get back to me because he's supposed to put together a committee. The committee is supposed to be refining plans so that they can have their direct input. I do not want to hear that it was superimposed on Oistins from the Ministry of Tourism, but I do say that I did not come here to count the cows. So when the milking has to begin, Mr. Speaker, sir, I expect to see the pint of milk delivered from the honourable member for Christchurch South. But the point is, sir, that we are at that stage where that too is part and parcel of what we're trying to do. But then there's some basic things, sir, that the Commission speaks to. You know, if you go through the Commission report, and I hope all honourable members go through it slowly, you've got pictures in there. There's a picture in there of the transport, not the transport, the bus terminal with a hole in the roof. You know, a visitor goes into the bus terminal. But let us not even think about a visitor. This is what we do to ourselves. That a Barbadian goes into the bus terminal. And if we don't begin by taking pride in how we treat this country and how we treat to each other in this country, if we do not as a people pause now and reflect on what we have for each other in terms of respect and values, then, Mr. Speaker, sir, tourism ain't got nothing to do with it, you know. This is about us. So we have a bus terminal with a hole in the roof. A woman goes into the bus terminal to relieve herself because she is not either minded to or physically capable of doing as some men in Barbados choose to do, and just stand alongside the road and aim at a wall.
In a tree.
So therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, she goes into a bathroom to relieve herself, and she sits on the throne to look up and see a hole in the roof, and a man working on the roof looking down at her. No, it is not funny. It is not funny. And the honourable members who toured the the Fairchild Street bus stand the other night would tell you that that which they saw was appalling. We have to make sure that the facilities, and part of what we have been saddled with, all these people who expect that 30 wizards were elected in May last year, have to come to understand that part of that which we have to do is a holistic reconstruction of almost every sector in this country. And it cannot be done all at once. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, sir, that public facilities is something that we're working with the Ministry of Public Works to be able to create in and around Bridgetown. When I was a little boy, there was a song called The Whole of Town Ain't Got No Toilet. No toilet for a man to sit. It was a Trinidadian calypso, Mr. Speaker, sir. It was true of Trinidad and Tobago then, and it is true of Barbados now. Only difference is they had oil, so they didn't have to worry about the tourism product or the impression created. Mr. Speaker, sir, the same thing is true of signage. We go through the city, we go through the country, and what we do not have adequately is signage. Whether that signage is directional signage, as in pointing you where to go to, or interpretive signage, so that it tells you that you are now at such a place which has the historical significance of being the first place ever to do whatever, or this is the place where whatever historical event took place. That we don't do. But you can't seriously be in a tourism setting, Mr. Speaker, a hospitality setting, and you don't sell your country. So when a chap hops into a vehicle that he rents and he tries to wend his way around Barbados as best he can, first of all, the roads are horrible, and that is something that we inherited, but we are working on fixing. And everybody, as I said this morning, sir, if you pass through Heinz Hill, you would think that you were driving somewhere in continental United States. It's one of the most beautiful experiences I had this morning. But you know, as you got, oh, by University of West Indies, as you go, sir, deeper and deeper into the country, the rural Barbados, sir. Let's take, yes, St. Andrew and St. Thomas. And I want to spend a little time on the cave. Because as you come in the road to Harrison's Cave, Mr. Speaker, sir, the marquee attraction, but the worst possible roads. I went to a meeting at Harrison's Cave with the chairman of the Caves of Barbados. Mr. Speaker, sir, and I must tell you, the roads are disgraceful is not the word. But again, it is a process. But this is the marquee attraction, and it ain't happen overnight. That ain't happen in a year, or 2 years, or 3 years of neglect, Mr. Speaker, sir. That is the product of what the Prime Minister has called a lost decade. And our challenge, sir, has to be to repair these things. I've already spoken about the derelict vehicles strewn all over the place, the dumping of garbage all over the place. The challenges that we have structurally now, because, Mr. Speaker, sir, again, we inherit a situation where there simply were not enough trucks, but yet still the country has to have its garbage collected regularly. And those are the things which added to the mix, which gave people the impetus to have 4 travel advisories issued against Barbados in February of 2018. And we are overcoming it, Mr. Speaker. But these are the things that we have to get right as a country, and these are the things that we and we alone must do for ourselves. Nobody else is going to do for us, but the impact on our image and our reputation as a tourism destination is quite substantial. Now, I said, sir, that I wanted to spend a minute on Harrison's Cave, and I must do that because members will recall that the BERT program was aimed at streamlining expenditure and the reform of state-owned enterprises. And a directive was issued to the Board of Caves of Barbados Limited to lease the commercial operations of Harrison's Cave. And that came about after a meeting with the social partners, sir, in which we went through an exercise as to those entities, what were those entities that needed to be run by the government, and those entities which could be run just as effectively by somebody else or some other entity. And, Mr. Speaker, sir, that was then followed by 5,000 people going online and making similar observations. And almost to a man, it was agreed that Harrison's Cave could be effectively operated by an entity other than the state. But the fact of the matter is, sir, that, and I said to this House when we came to the decision that we were going to go to a divestment, I said to this House, and I remember well the response given by the Leader of the Opposition, that I was acutely aware of the environmental importance of the cave as a national asset. I am acutely aware, Mr. Speaker, sir, that we have to maintain that asset's environmental conditions in such a way that we do not destroy its beauty. It takes thousands of years for a stalactite to come from the roof halfway down to the earth. It takes thousands of years, Mr. Speaker, sir, for the stalagmites to grow up. And those things, sir, can be destroyed overnight. So you just can't race people through there, hundreds of them and thousands of them a day, as though it's horses going around the Garrison Savannah. I was acutely aware, Mr. Speaker, sir, of the cultural significance. I'm acutely aware, Mr. Speaker, sir, of its heritage, its importance as a heritage asset for the country. And that the approach that, in my view, that we had to take was an approach that was sensitive to those things. And at the same time, I felt, and I said in this House, sir, that I thought it was a golden opportunity for us to go where no man had gone before in the business in Barbados of privatization or divestment of things, because part and parcel of what we have talked about has always gone one way. There's a feature, there's a common thread that runs through it. When you talk this language of divestment, previous administrations would tell you that they're privatizing. But all went one way, Mr. Speaker. It had a common boundary and end. The honourable member for Christchurch South has interrupted me. It has a common boundary and end. And that common boundary, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that people with big money, often of a lighter hue, will end up holding it. And people with small money, the workers in Barbados, the wage earners in Barbados, saw that which was something owned by the state on their behalf, operated by the state, hopefully in their interest, disappear. and usually for good. And I felt, Mr. Speaker, sir, that it was an opportunity for us to make sure that we went where no others had gone, and that we would be able to bring in entities that represent the body public of the body politic and the body public of Barbados, whether those entities were the credit unions, whether those entities were the labor movement, whatever. And Mr. Speaker, sir, I remember saying that in this House, and the Leader of the Opposition saying that it would be a wonderful thing, and that he would sing our praises if it could come to pass. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, the fact of the matter is that the tenders box was opened on the 18th of April of 2019, and we received tenders from 4 companies. The evaluation committee met, I think it was on the 13th of May of this year. There was one proposal, sir, that stood out like a beacon in the night. One tender. It was completely unique in the sense that it was the one tender that spoke to the importance and the integrity of the asset as an environmental asset first and foremost. Its sensitivity as an environmental treasure. That was understood as the point of departure. Many of the others treated it as though you're going to buy a potted plant. Pick it up, put it in the garden, water, go on. They taught the language, sir, of how the thing can be maintained. But beyond that, Mr. Speaker, sir, they proposed an attraction which would not be a one-stop along a course of attraction for a cruise ship passenger in Barbados. As you move from point A to point B, you spend half hour there, you move on to point C, you have lunch, you spend half hour elsewhere, you go on, etc., which is how they now do it. Because part of the interlinkages in this country that I spoke about before was that the person providing the ground transportation often also owns the attractions. So naturally, that individual wants you to get into his bus, because he provided the ground transportation, getting money from that, and he wants you to go to his attraction where you will see the stuff and pay some money for that, and you move on to the next one which you pay some money for, and you go to the lunch place, which probably I got an influence over or share in, and you go elsewhere, etc., and it all works integratedly. And all is well when you do it that way for me, because everything was at me, and I had a good day, and my people that work for me, content, we go on home. But there's a wider Barbados. I want to keep cautioning and reminding people, hello, there's a wider society that we have to think of. And the thing is that there was a proposal, sir, which saw the cave as the attraction in Barbados, not a stop across many attractions. And they proposed, Mr. Speaker, sir, a $6 million capital investment to transform Harrison's Cave. $6 million. I will not reflect on the level of money, but it didn't come nowhere near, no other proposal came anywhere near that kind of money to reinvest in the cave's development. And to transform the cave into a full nature adventure park, sir. Now, the emphasis will be on the preservation of the environment. The emphasis will be on the creation of new activities at the cave. What among those new activities is zip line, Mr. Speaker, sir. Suspended walkway over the forest area, linking with neighboring Barbadian-owned attractions so that you can have a safari adventure that takes you from point A to point B. For example, Welsh Mahal Gully is right next door. So you experience the cave and you do a nature tour through Welsh Mahal Gully. Or you experience the cave and you go to, Coco Hill, and so on and so forth. Mr. Speaker, sir, they're interested in capturing and presenting the Green Monkey experience as an interactive experience with the monkeys. They're interested, Mr. Speaker, sir, in Bajan cuisine, so that at the cave you then intermingle with the neighboring communities in St. Thomas, so that there will be an opportunity to sample those things that are explicitly Barbadian. Learn how to roast a breadfruit, Mr. Speaker, sir. The breadfruit bowl could got in some pork or some pigtail or something like that, Mr. Speaker, sir. Yes, Mr. Speaker, and the alcohol obviously must be Barbadian-owned as well, Barbadian-produced as well. So you got natural juices and that kind of thing. That's what the concept is all about. And above and beyond that, sir, the interaction with the neighboring communities also was to include the type of employment. So that they wanted to begin by saying that as a precondition to further employment, first of all, they wanted to draw from a radius within the cave itself, so that the people from around the cave, the people born and bred in St. Thomas, Mr. Speaker, sir, get first dibs. Not exclusively, but they get a first choice or job opportunities at the cave. And Mr. Speaker, as though that were not sufficient, Mr. Speaker, sir, nature trails and wellness walks as being an overall experience. So that even if you did not choose to go beneath, and I'm made to understand there's some people who are a little bit afraid of it and feel a little uncomfortable about going underground, but you go to the cave and experience just simply the wellness walks and nature trails and so on and so forth. And it becomes a whole day experience. Not satisfied, they wanted to put in I think it's a 200-foot slide from the upper levels right down to the base of the cave floor, which would be primarily engaging children as an attraction. And Mr. Speaker, sir, to have the operation working by day and by night on weekends as well. No, sir. The part of it that made the most sense to me was that the company proposed to raise the investment capital via offering an opportunity to our credit unions, offering an opportunity to our small business association to buy in by way of preferential share ownership in the cave. So that, Mr. Speaker, that which was dreamed of, that which I told this House we could do, has been actually proposed. And that we now have a situation where there is a proposal before the government, which Cabinet has approved, that the new look of the cave will be something that for the first time in Barbados' history will reflect a partnership that takes along, if the credit union movement is now prepared to respond to it and to partner and respond to the invitation, that takes along the people of Barbados, even as you speak the language of divestment. And Mr. Speaker, sir, there is a next step. In keeping with the principles set down by this government for transparency in all that we do, we are going to set up a college of negotiators, and that college of negotiators will engage with the entity that has won the award, so that the terms and conditions of the lease contract will not be something done behind closed doors by a politician or by a functionary on behalf of a politician, but will, Mr. Speaker, sir, be able to be seen in the fullest glare of day. The negotiations, sir, will be led by a college of will comprise a college of negotiators, which will be led by Mr. Anthony Ordain, QC, who is an attorney at law, obviously, because of Queen's Counsel, but also, sir, a certified chartered accountant in his own right. And, Mr. Speaker, sir, the rest of the College of Negotiators has not yet been approved by Cabinet, so I pause there. But on conclusion of the negotiations, further announcement will be made. But the principle that comes out of all of this, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that which the Leader of the Opposition hinted he would be most surprised at and suggested that he didn't believe could be possible, has come to pass. That we have, in fact, done a divestment, which opens the door for ordinary Barbadian men and women to share in and be part of the process of ownership of the most fundamental natural heritage asset that this country has. Mr. Speaker, sir, we ain't done there, because part of the air-to-sea concept means that you can't fly and cruise unless you talk about the airport, and the airport divestment. Again, you know, this is all part of the thinking of the Prime Minister. She sat down next to me at Lloyd Erskine Sandyford Centre when we met with all the staff of the airport, and she told them, Let not your heart be troubled. The divestment must include you, and that we want to take you along as owners of the entity. And shares in the airport to go to workers, Mr. Speaker, sir, and for the NIS to be offered shares in the airport, so that the people of the country retain a stake in the patrimony of the land. And Mr. Speaker, sir, we ain't selling neither the cave nor the airport, but we are finding a creative way of raising necessary developmental revenue. In the case of the cave, $6 million. In the case of the airport, Mr. Speaker, sir, $175 million, so as to ensure that we are able to build additional capacity, while at the same time, pardon? While at the same time taking the people of Barbados into our confidence and giving them an opportunity to have a stake of ownership which they have never before had. It is a model, sir, of divestment that has not been done in this country before, and it is, I suspect, sir, something that will now be tried to be followed across the Caribbean. But let no man forget that it was done by this Barbados Labour Party administration. And I say to you, Mr. Speaker, sir, that you know, we have talked about Festive Friday in passing. When I talk about new products, sir, I have to reflect on that, because the urgency of the hour with regard to Festive Friday was that we needed to find a way of maintaining, we need to find a way of doing two things. One, responding to the challenges which clearly were coming out of the studies. Now, I could have waited contentedly until when we come to Parliament and then Parliament approve or take note of the resolution and so on and so forth. But the fact of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, that while the grass is growing, the horse is starving. And the reality is that for now, 2005 to 2019, 14 years, the problem wasn't really acute in 2005. In fact, the problem began in 2008. So, sir, for 12 years, we have been seeing a decline in passenger spend in Barbados, coming off of cruise ships. And we have been seeing, Mr. Speaker, sir, a failure to link cruise ship passengers to the creative and cultural art of the country. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, what then do you do? You've studied it. You're satisfied now that there's a time to move. What are you going to do? Spin top in mud? That would be to replicate the inaction of the last administration. So we went out, and I want to thank, Mr. Speaker, sir, the Ministry of Public Works, because they obviously had to be persuaded to cooperate with us in this venture. I have to thank, Mr. Speaker, sir, the Royal Barbados Police Force, because they obviously had to be persuaded to cooperate with us in this weekly venture. I have to thank, Mr. Speaker, sir, the National Cultural Foundation, because they are the island's principal event planners, and we could not have done it without them. Mr. Speaker, sir, I obviously have to thank those folks who worked with me at the BTMI, because they understood the sense of urgency and the sense of impatience of their minister, and were tolerant of his impatience and tried their best to accommodate the urgency, and have done so, Mr. Speaker, sir. I have to thank the people at the BIDC, because we use in Pelican Village, sir, their property. And obviously, sir, the vendors and the craftspersons of Barbados, because it is an emphatic statement of what is possible if you repose your confidence in the working class people of this country. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, the Cruise Commission report speaks extensively to Pelican Village and the failing of Pelican Village for years. But we didn't need a Cruise Commission report to highlight that. All of us in Barbados know, because all of us in Barbados have passed it day after day after day. And all of us, Mr. Speaker, sir, have seen it shut down. Cruise passengers walking on the other side of the street, walking past the country's major arts and crafts center. It's built, sir, I don't wish to say built in an idiotic way, but it is built in a way that I wouldn't build anything. You want it to attract people, but you put it to back the road, so that the entrances to most of the places, sir, are on the inside. People pass and they don't know what it is. The signage is poor. No lighting out there, Mr. Speaker, sir. you haven't worked in, for all the years it's been there, nobody had come up with nothing that could keep it open later on evening so that you would capture a little traffic. You have Temple Yard up the road, another tragedy of the last administration, that we went through a situation, you all remember, for St. Michael Southeast, could tell you, Mr. Speaker, sir, the agitation. And these are things that we can't fix everything, but some of these things still on the menu to be dealt with. You know, you can't have folks in Temple Yard offering craft product. They're selling the culture of the land, man. But Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, we want running water, though. We want some lights, though. They have entertainment down there on a Sunday evening, Mr. Speaker, sir. And these people are operating under those basic disabilities. Bathroom facilities, lighting, running water. It is not right, it is not fair. But they are business people too. And I have to be unapologetic when I say to you, sir, that we are failing this country if we cannot deal decisively with these things. And I think it is a level of arch hypocrisy for people who sat in splendid silence and condoned this ignorance growing and blossoming, Mr. Speaker, for 10 years, and then expect overnight that the Barbados Labour Party administration is going to rectify all of these things. It is arch hypocrisy. So, Mr. Speaker, so what do? We reach out, and I can't be vexed with folks who have been so hurt by neglect for so long that they will be a little bit reticent and uncertain and unsure as to the extent to which they want to repose confidence and partner. I was really moved in this yard on Friday evening, where a gentleman from Pelican, who had not participated in any of the Festive Fridays before, said to me, Minister, I want you to come down there and talk. I want you to come down there and talk with me because I have an interest in it now. I was moved because he had to see it before his eyes, before he risked believing it. Same principle. There are people in this gallery, sir, who you cannot see because you cannot spy strangers. By convention, you are not allowed to see strangers in the gallery.
Exactly.
But, Mr. Speaker, sir, I can assure you that there exist in the public gallery people who could tell you that I sat down and mandated that we reach out to folks who making leather craft, that they can be there in Pelican, even though they may not have a unit or a place in Pelican that they're renting. Let us put into an arrangement with the BIDC an opportunity for people to have a space where you can go down there on a Friday and make leather craft so that your shoes can be made there. If a visitor wants sandals or a Bajan wants sandals. Because that which is for the visitor is for the Bajan, that which is for the Bajan is for the visitor. Let's not draw any line of demarcation. You want sandals, you want a belt, you want a bag, you want something of that nature, made there for you on the spot. And let us showcase that to the world, because I can tell you something, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, what they are seeking is something that is authentic and indigenous to Barbados. And you know, sir, there is nowhere in the Eastern Caribbean to be found a craft market that works by day and by night, but we have brought one to Barbados, sir. There is nowhere in the Eastern Caribbean where the craft market concept is married with a cultural experience, so that you can have music, Mr. Speaker, you can have Barbadian food, Mr. Speaker, Barbadian drink on case, on show. But we have brought that to the table. And on top of that, we create a rhythm route so that you can have a party in the street every Friday night. And you do it in time for the people to participate and then go back on the ship. And Mr. Speaker, sir, that which was seen as a pilot and viewed with skepticism by Royal Caribbean and Carnival a month ago has now transformed, sir, into 2-year commitments and an invitation for us to put together the packages so that we can sell them on board the cruise ship, sir. That people are now buying into it, and that they want it to be there and sustained through winter, because when the traffic get heavy, this is something that they feel that they can sell and promote. But it is not something that a multimillionaire that owns an overwhelming percentage of the country's business created, Mr. Speaker, sir. That is created by the goodwill, the talent, the ability of ordinary Barbadian people, in the interest of ordinary Barbadian people, for the sustenance of ordinary Barbadian people, so that our craftspersons can be part of the tourism economy. When the business research study was saying that Barbados access to craft in Barbados, access to those products in Barbados, falls at position number 26 out of a possible 35 across the Caribbean. And people were content. They were content with it. Got more dams down there on a Friday night than anywhere else in Barbados. People that I had not seen, that I thought were dead. Huh? I took them for dead. And I suddenly see them appearing. Mr. Speaker, sir, glad for something to do when them run down the place. Them run down the place. Glad for something to do when night come. Mr. Speaker, sir, so we are at that stage. You've heard, sir, the Prime Minister speak to the need for us to talk, now stop talking now and move in the direction of bringing about an appropriate product attraction that will enable us to honor and to commoditize the image and the reputation of our greatest cultural icon and asset, Rihanna. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, you know, again, the press in Barbados sometimes amazes me. I was reading with some interest news the other day, and I spoke to this in New York. Prime Minister spoke to it. She, at the same time, I believe, was in London, and she spoke to it in a town hall address in London. And somehow or the other, folks in that section of the media found it possible for an online discussion to evolve over whether we would do a statue or whether we can name a roundabout. And I want Barbadians to understand that era ended in May last year, man. We are talking about things now that allow the people of this country to benefit from having a tangible experience, an attraction that you visit, that you participate in, and that the country gets a financial benefit from. And that the partnership that we would want to have with that young lady, Mr. Speaker, sir, will be more along the lines of what the Jamaicans do for Bob Marley in Jamaica. We got the Bob Marley Museum, where people can come and visit the place of her birth, where people can, and in this case, they ain't just the place of her birth, but probably also, sir, sample her product in a different setting, because she is the only black woman in the history of the world that been able to open her own house, Mr. Speaker, of fashion. The only black woman. I think today Gloria Vanderbilt's death was announced. She joined the category of that level of global icon and superstar. And she is in her 30s, Mr. Speaker, sir. So we want people to be able to come there and understand what the perfume is about, understand what the makeup is about, understand what the clothing line is about, understand Rihanna in all of her aspects. And then, Mr. Speaker, sir, to experience perhaps a journey, so that Rihanna, the schoolgirl, right through to Rihanna, the winner of international awards. I just got to conceptualize how this museum will function. And I must say, my research, because I don't just talk about these things, spend time, long hours researching. And I know from my own experience in Jamaica, but I then wanted to go back and see what others felt, is that, you know, the standalone museum works for Bob Marley to a limited extent and to a limited extent alone. It works for Jamaica's tourism to a limited extent. It needs to be more than just a standalone experience. You have to blend it with something else. So you can pretty much spend the better part of a day as part of that. And I go back to the point, Mr. Speaker, sir, that what we're talking about when we talk about home porting, when we're talking about expanding the cruise sector, is giving visitors a menu of options that you can be on a ship and you're tantalized, not by the food at the buffet table, but you're tantalized by the menu of options put before you when you get to the port in Barbados. Well, do you want to do the museum experience for Rihanna as well as whatever you blend that with? Or do you want to do the Harrison's Cave marquee attraction, which is said to be a whole day attraction, but is a natural heritage experience full of adventure, health and wellness opportunities? Or do you want to go and experience Sunbury Great House? Or do you want to go and explore the UNESCO World Heritage Site? Or do you want to go into the hills of St. Joseph and experience an eco-adventure? Or do you want to go to Oystins? Or do you, and you go on, Mr. Speaker, and 4,500 people on board a ship will sit down and say, oh my God, all of these things to do, babes. Well, come, me and you going, left these people in here, we got to find something to do in Barbados. That's how it works, sir. That's how it works. You pick up the wife, the children, you go along about your business because they got things to do out there. But if you have, as we now have, a cruise product that don't respond to the menu of options, that don't respond to the natural talent and diversity of the land, the people of Barbados are shut out because them too black, too poor, too irrelevant to matter. Then, Mr. Speaker, sir, you will have the stagnation that we are experiencing. And I hate to put it in those very blunt, stark terms, but you know, sometimes you have to speak in those terms for people to wake up and smell the coffee. And sir, I genuinely believe that the time has come for us to transform that. So therefore, as I say to you, there is a menu of attractions that I think we can build out. And I'm not going to detain the House going on and on about all of them, but suffice to say that some got to touch Whole Town, some have to touch Spikestown, some has to touch, Mr. Speaker, sir, at St. Lawrence Gap, and we keep on going on. Now, there's another aspect of this, sir, which is what we do in the summertime. Because we have historically pigeonholed ourselves into being a destination that is seen as a warm weather getaway. So poor Barbados, they ain't nothing to do about here in summer other than crop over festival. And if you're cruising, then the place dead because, well, you see it now, sir. This is June, and you see it in May, and you see it in July. You're getting 2 and 3 ships, if you're lucky. Because, sir, we have told the world, and we have sold the world the idea that Barbados is about a warm weather getaway, something to do, get away from the snow. Not that we have told the world that we are the place that created rum, and that we have a rum experience second to none, and we have built out around that rum experience a product, Mr. Speaker, sir, that teaches you how rum was made, it teaches you the history of rum, it celebrates, Mr. Speaker, the struggle of poor black working class people who were once slaves, but then became free, and then became the leading country in the Eastern Caribbean. We have not sold that to the world. We have not told them that from this place, Barbados colonized North Carolina and South Carolina, whose first 4 or 5 governors were Barbadian planters, Mr. Speaker, sir. We have not told them that because we have been ashamed of our history and not sought to commoditize the asset. But that asset, Mr. Speaker, sir, that asset is a rich heritage. And that rich heritage should be able to be sold all around the globe. And if we did that, sir, then we would be able to tap into some of the cruise lines that are offering tours, such as a rum experience tour. And yes, sir, there are cruise lines that are offering those tours. Why are they not in the port of Bridgetown, Mr. Speaker, sir? It ain't that port of Bridgetown closed. It is that there has been no vision associated with the development of cruise tourism to make sure that the linkage of that nature has been built. The time for it has come. That's why the folks who did the Cruise Commission report call it the dawn of a new day, Mr. Speaker, sir. So there is a variety of issues that we have to look in terms of the development of this sector. As I said, it turns on our small business. sector, and I want for a wholesome and happy partnership with the small business sector, because in all that we do, we are aiming at empowering and enfranchising that sector further. We have to build a deeper partnership with the Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Speaker, sir, because again, the Chamber of Commerce is key to that which is happening in commercial Bridgetown. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Ministry of Environment, because the question of the quality of our environment, our cleanliness, the vegetation, Mr. Speaker, sir, the state of our beaches, these are essential. The Ministry of Public Works, Mr. Speaker, the roads, the public restrooms, etc. These are essential components, Mr. Speaker, sir. And in all of it, these are all private entities. I talk about the government agencies that have responsibility, but all of the players are private entities. And business facilitation, that which the Labour Party campaigned on, has to be continuing to be a part of the day. The call for the facilitation of small businesses so that they can be more competitive. The call, Mr. Speaker, that I've made from this House to include opportunities for access to the market for our small or micro or medium-sized business so that they can have a greater stake. And that in all of this, sir, we are talking about what is growth. We ain't snuffing out nobody who large. We are giving a larger pie so that the large man can have a share, a piece of that pie, but the small people must be able to get more, Mr. Speaker, sir. And in all that we do, there must be a position where every Barbadian is seen as a potential stakeholder in the business of tourism. Now, sir, if you go to the report at page 75 or so through 80, you will see that a number of the things I've been talking about are outcomes which the report expects to be, expects the cruise sector to be the benefit of. There are some of the outcomes, Mr. Speaker, sir, that are exceptionally impressive, and I want to share them with you. I go back, for example, to the Oistins Bay Gardens area, because, you know, again, it comes down to how we as a people see ourselves. The report makes the point, Mr. Speaker, sir, about the need to upgrade the toilet facilities and make arrangements to ensure that they are open and attended. Now, you know, Mr. Speaker, sir, the honourable member for Christchurch South would tell you that that is an ongoing challenge. That people want to be up there, people are up there making money all like now, Mr. Speaker, sir, and tonight. But you know, it is quite possible that you go up there tonight, you want to use the bathroom, you hit all the bathroom closed. Do you know, Mr. Speaker, that you can do a cruise around Barbados, a tour around Barbados, and you have, in fact, it is reported in this document. You go around Barbados, sir, and there no public restroom to be found on the East Coast, that shut up. Yeah. You go Farley Hill, that one damaged. You go somewhere else, nobody in there, nobody know who got the key. You go somewhere else, sir, that one damaged too. Huh? No, I'm not saying that the NCC or others will not from time to time intervene, but there has to be a standard beyond which we will not allow ourselves to sink. I also, Mr. Speaker, sir, made reference to the fact that they talk about removal of rotting boats and debris from the area of the Bay of Gardens complex, the refurbishment of craft vendor stalls, refreshment and restoration of tables and chairs which are in a dilapidated state of appearance. Mr. Speaker, sir, these are things that don't cost large money. It requires attention to detail. Again, sir, the expanding of home porting will only work if associated requirements are also addressed. Therefore, tourism officials like me must ensure that hotels come on board with packages that reflect a willingness to work with attractions and deliver quality night experiences. And that's what we're talking to you about, sir, that there has to be an interface. The BHTA cannot stand in splendid isolation by itself, but it must understand that they are part and parcel, sir, of a country's well-being. And they've got to be prepared, sir, to work with attractions across the country. And the implementation, sir, of island-wide industry-wide continuous training programs. And sir, I wish to emphasize this as the last point of emphasis, because I believe that it's all well and good for me to stand up here and deplore the absence of courtesy on the part of some store employees. I believe, Mr. Speaker, sir, that I can make a point about the fact that my own experience has been that there are some fantastic tour guides in Barbados, and then there are others, sir, who need to be better trained. But the reality is that what the Commission is telling us is that we have to, first of all, create a formula where we certify our tour guides and that we train them, and that we also work in collaboration with other entities across Barbados so that people who are interfacing with not only Bajans but with visitors get the benefit of courses, even if it is only a couple of days, to train you in some of the basics that you have to do, Mr. Speaker, sir. And that part of the professional development and delivery of better quality experiences, sir, is related towards our ability to build courses that will reflect that participants in the sector have been given an opportunity to better understand the role that they are playing and the role they are expected to play. Mr. Speaker, sir, the truth of the matter is that this document must be seen, and I think should be seen, as a blueprint for the transformation of the tourism sector in Barbados. It is aimed primarily at cruise tourism, but largely it applies to the realities of long-stay visitors as well. If we are going to truly say that it is our business and that every Barbadian must play a part, and as we have a campaign, I am Barbados, meaning that every Barbadian is part of, I am tourism, every Barbadian is part of tourism. Mr. Speaker, sir, the reality is that we must now live it. We can't just talk it, we've got to walk that walk. It has to be a lived reality. And, sir, I want to say that it is only through the ongoing conscientious redoubling of effort across this society by everyone who is connected to not only tourism directly, but everyone who is connected indirectly, and that means largely all Barbadians. All Barbadians, irrespective of their political persuasion, irrespective of their class, race, and creed, sir, need to understand that on this island, the overwhelming proportion of economic opportunity arises from this sector that we are talking about. And we need, sir, to be on board with all of the initiatives and ideas that can be brought up in order to transform it for the better. I genuinely invite, sir, the support of this House, the constructive criticism of this House, and in particular the opposition. But I also invite, sir, the support of the opposition on what is substantially, in large measure, a very non-partisan issue, because in every way, the future of the country, the well-being of the society and the economy hinges on our ability to find and to define a sense and a spirit of partnership as we go forward to make sure that cruise tourism in Barbados and long-stay tourism in Barbados offers the maximum degree of opportunity for the well-being and sustenance of all of our people. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move that this resolution do now pass.
Before, I think you have to read the resolution.
I read it at the beginning.
The resolution is read?
Yeah, I started by reading it.
And so you want to...
But if you want me to read it again...
Be resolved that the Parliament, you're going to ask us to take note of the final resolution. Has it taken it already?
You got to be read again?
Okay.
You got to be read again?
Oh, yeah.
No?
Okay. The documents, before you say the documents that you were supposed to make
yes, sir, I made them available
yes.
to the clerk.
Okay.
I'm obliged, Mr. Speaker, sir.
You're obliged. Member for the City of Bridgetown.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. First of all, let me compliment the Honourable Member for St. James Central and his team for a most comprehensive report. And the Honourable Member was so comprehensive that he's touched on all areas, and there's very little for me to talk about. But this is an area that I have some strong feelings about, and I believe that it is quite in order for me to say a few things. And when I look at the resolution, there's one thing that sticks out and stands out with me, and that is the first paragraph, which reads in part that cruise lines are reporting declining consumer interest in Barbados due to the fact that its product offering in general and onshore tour capacity in particular has neither diversified nor expanded over the last decade. And it was interesting for me listening to the honorable member speak, and certainly from my personal experience, I am not too sure that I agree with the statement or the view that the product has not diversified. What it seems to me to have happened, and perhaps to be happening, is that that part of the product which is diversifying as we speak is not being marketed. And it would appear to me, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that we continue to market what is obviously an aging and a tired tourism product. And that we've been doing this consistently over the last several years to the extent that we have expended so much money in marketing a product that is under stress. And when you go through the estimates of expenditure for the last several years, you will notice the huge differentiation between the funds that have been allocated for marketing and the funds that have been allocated for developing the very product. And this, in my view, is the genesis of the problem with not only cruise tourism, but tourism in general in our fair land. And I can say so speaking from personal experiences, because I too, like a lot of people in here and a lot of Barbadians these days, have attended or have been on at least 2 or 3 cruises, even within the Caribbean. And I can say certainly, as a cruise passenger, that I enjoyed the experiences that were offered in other Caribbean lands, where I was able to experience some things that were not available at the time here in Barbados. For example, like the train ride in St. Kitts and Nevis, the Brimstone Hill Park, World Heritage Site, which is a thing to behold. Like the Sulphur Springs in Dominica and the ecotourism trails and so forth. And I myself remember standing in a queue waiting to board, to go back on board the Carnival cruise ship. And these visitors, these tourists in front of me were saying what a remarkable time they had in Dominica, and it was for them the best experience so far on that itinerary, which had already passed through Barbados. And that, for me, said a whole lot. And I believe that it is time, and the honourable member did speak to the number of our attractions that have either been closed or certainly they're not operating today. But we keep, as I said, marketing this product. But there have been a number of changes as well. A number of new things have come on board. And I'm not sure that we are doing the right things in terms of trying to give the visitors the best authentic Barbadian experience that we can give. And I believe that we have some things that we have a competitive advantage, and we are not utilizing these things to the best of our ability. I believe that we are not focusing on providing an experience, even within the context of the Caribbean, where the islands are generally, we have the same culture and so on. But there are things that we do differently, and there are experiences that we can facilitate even better than our neighbors. But I do not believe, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that we are focusing on these things. And I would like to speak to a few. We, for example, have failed miserably, and the Honourable Member has stated this, to capitalize on the designation of Bridgetown and its historic garrison as a World Heritage Site. And it is not only Bridgetown. This country consists of a lot of heritage and cultural heritage. And what for me is disturbing is that when I did a bit of research, not as much as the Honourable Member for St. James Central, but I recognize the bounty that there is in cultural heritage tourism. And when you look at the number of persons who visit the Caribbean, Bermuda, Bahamas, the entire Caribbean on cruise ships, the numbers are significantly greater than most regions on the globe. And when we consider the fact that cultural heritage tourism accounts for the largest chunk of the tourist market in terms of spend, it tells me that we are not really focusing in the direction that we have to focus. We are not focusing where the money is. And this to me is a serious issue. Within Bridgetown, for example, there are about 4 or 5 museums of great importance, from the Jewish synagogue to the Screw Dock, the Barbados Museum. The minister spoke about cricket legends. Now that is legendary, but we are not making it so. Per capita, we have perhaps the highest number of great, renowned, important cricketers this world has ever seen, but we are not marketing this thing properly. And to boot, Cricket Legends is located a stone's throw away from Kensington Oval. Our only living national hero is the greatest cricketer the world has ever seen. What do we do about that? Per capita, this country has, I believe, among the highest in this world of world champions in terms of bodybuilding, Mr. World and Mr. Universe. Quite a few from Earl Maynard back down. I can count at least 6 or 7 for a small 166 square mile nation like Barbados. When we look at heritage tourism, who is telling the story from Speightstown, where the Cromwellian forces tried to invade this country and were repelled? And they ran, well, they didn't run, but they sailed right around to Oistins because they could not get in, because this island was heavily fortified. They were repelled. And that story does not end there, because this country possessed perhaps the finest collection of 17th century English cannon in the world, with one of only 2 Cromwellian cannon in existence. And yet still we are not bringing all of this together. When will someone come up with the idea to get some of the cruise ship passengers to go on some sort of a pleasure craft that will sail the route from Speightstown to Oistins, stopping at Speightstown, Bridgetown, and Oistins? Barbados has a lot to offer. We have a serious heritage. We are not using it. We are not capitalizing on it. And it is not, Honourable Member for St. James Central, it is not only the tunnels and the mosques and the synagogues and so forth. We are not even anywhere near where we ought to be in terms of memorabilia that relates to the heritage sites. And that is where we can bring the people into the experience, some young people, to make some stuff, from miniature Lord Nelsons to the same Cromwellian cannon that I just spoke to. We have to offer something that is different. And what we offer to tourists who visit these shores and people who come especially on cruise ships has to be an authentic Barbadian experience that takes them into the villages and, as you said, Honourable Member, into the rum shops and places where Barbadians congregate. We know very well that a larger number of visitors are taking public transport to get to and fro. And I do not believe that they do so only because of economic reasons, because bus fares are cheaper, obviously, than a taxi fare. I believe they do so too because they want to share in the Barbadian experience. And these are things that I believe that we need to put on the front burner if we want to reshape and reorient our tourism product. We have an aging population. We have one of the highest per capita occurrences of centenarians in this world. I believe second only to Okinawa in Japan. We all know that the elderly spend money when they go on cruises and when they visit. It is time that we look at you capitalizing on that fact that we create the atmosphere in Barbados where Barbados becomes a hub for elderly tourists, including cruise ship tourists, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And I do not believe that some place like Queen's Park and one or two other areas in the city, and not only the city, areas outside of the city, should be left idle during the daytime when cruise ships are here. We have to be innovative and use our ingenuity to create facilities and atmosphere to cater to all, including some special recreational areas for the elderly and for visitors with disabilities who come to these shores. We have to think outside of the box. The first rum refinery was established right here in Barbados, the home of rum and sugar innovation. I don't think we sell it enough. I don't think we market it enough. People spend money every day and go to Britain, to Buckingham Palace, to see the troop in the colour and change in the guards. We have a World Heritage Site that's centered around a garrison, and we have a military force here. It is not utilized in terms of providing those attractions for visitors. We need to think outside of the box. And I believe that if we really work together with the people in this country, there are areas in Barbados that people seem to think visitors would not want to go because perhaps there's some sort of stigmatization. We have some issues, but we need to bring our people on board. And I believe I can see it in front of me. I can see us creating an atmosphere where some villages in Barbados could be given some assistance, some training, some cleaning up and everything to create a Barbadian experience that is unique, from the same roasting of breadfruit to the playing of road tennis to culture. We have to find some way to integrate the Israel Level Foundation and the Haynesville drummers and the Poundless Creative Workshop and these people into the cultural aspect of our tourism product, especially at our ports of entry. And Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I believe that if we are going to make that transition from a lower earning destination, because that is what basically the honourable members have been saying all day, that we have to sell Barbados. We have to promote Barbados in a different way from the time people get off the cruise ship. Pelican Village, for example, which is in an ideal location. I mean, you couldn't want anything better than that in terms of Carlisle Bay and the view, the vista, the feeling, the atmosphere right there on the ocean. But it does not look like a place where visitors would expect to find people producing and selling crafts or anything of this sort. We need to reorient and redirect the traffic to start at Pelican Village. And the other thing, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is that we have to involve people from the communities in a greater way, and I give credit to the ministry, to the minister and his team for starting this process. I like what I'm seeing at Pelican Village. I like the idea of making contact with people and bringing them into the process so that they do not feel alienated and isolated from the very thing that is supposed to generate revenue for this country. I think it's a step in the right direction. But I must say this. We cannot, Mr. Deputy Speaker, look at developing an authentic Barbadian tourism product, and especially in the city of Bridgetown, unless some urgent attention is paid to Nelson Street and the Baxes Road area, because those were the two entertainment centers in this country.
Baxes Road.
And there's a lot that can be done to rejuvenate the areas and to reorient the areas. And I have said it in this honorable chamber before. There were several places in Nelson Street and Bay Street with balconies that had live music, jazz, and things used to play every weekend, and those were places to go, and we can get those places back in operation again.
Yes.
And if we could only try to sell a product that is different, give an offering that is different to others, I think that visitors would certainly want to come to our shores. So, my final point, which is the one that I started with, has to do with the marketing. Mr. Deputy Speaker, through you to the honourable member, we have to look at the dollars that are allocated for marketing and the dollars that are allocated for the development of the product. And I mean, it is obvious to me that greater emphasis needs to be placed on getting the product up to the standard that you want it to be at, and greater emphasis needs to be placed on the diversified product, because there are a lot of different things that are happening that are not captured and that the visitors are not exposed to or aware of. And I dare say, in a lot of cases, not even Barbadians are aware of these things. And they're important things. I remember the initiative, for example, where people were able to go and dine at various residences and things, going to communities and dine and enjoy. I saw it happening myself. I was present at a house where the mighty Gabby was singing with his guitar, and the experience was great. But that really did not get the impetus that it really needed. And we really have to move in a totally different direction. But I believe that collectively we can put Barbados on the map, right up there as being the #1 destination for tourists in the Caribbean area and perhaps in the world. And not only for tourists, but including cruise tourists. Cruise tourism is important. Cultural tourism is important. Tourism is our business. Please, let us all now do our part. I thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
He's speaking afterwards. Member for St. James South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Thank you, Leader of the Opposition. I have to say that the Honourable Member for St. James North has certainly fired
St. James.
up. Central, I'm sorry.
Central.
Central has fired up the House and certainly has delivered of himself a most passionate, excellent speech and exposition on tourism and where he wants to take it, and we fully commend him. And he was followed by an equally passionate representative of the city because of what this cruise tourism and the development of the tourism product will mean for the city of Bridgetown. I am particularly enthused because I've spent many years in the tourism sector. I've worked in it as a management consultant. I've worked in it as an employee, and therefore I have a passion for tourism, and I'm thoroughly engaged and excited and support what has been placed here in relation to the cruise tourism. And What I particularly want to emphasize is our need for the broad inclusion of many Barbadians in the tourism product. So I was very heartened by what the representative from St. James Central had to say about what they plan to do to make sure that they include more Barbadians in the tourism product, so that they have a hope, so that they have opportunities. I was stunned to hear that of 255 taxi operators, they only have 3% of the market. Taxi operators were people who used to have money in their pockets. They were well-to-do in their communities. And the mismanagement of this tourism product has reduced them to penury because they find themselves now scrambling for pennies, and this is leading to conflict in trying to secure guests for their taxi operations. So I'm really looking forward to the transformation of the cruise tourism sector, that we can have better and more participation. But I want to focus on, if we are to make this happen, a couple of critical things that need to be addressed. The Honourable Member mentioned the fact that one of the things that would be needed is the training of our people. And he outlined some experiences that he had at the Festive Friday in terms of how people engage the tourists, how they engage their customers. And this comes, Mr. Deputy Speaker, not just from a lack of manners. It really comes from lack of social confidence. Now, a lot of people feel that people who are courageous, who come over as though they're bold or talk a lot or seem strident in their behavior, people don't understand that those behaviors often hide lack of social confidence. And therefore, if we are going to transform the way in which our people are going to engage this opportunity, the training that we put in place must, yes, include standards, it must include service, it must include a number of things, technical training, but it must also include the psycho-cultural training that helps to build the social confidence for engagement with strangers. Our people wait for others to speak to them first. They wait to see how the other person engages them, and they then match the person's behavior. This is a problem to us in tourism, and therefore, any training that we select to spread across this nation to broaden engagement must address those psycho-cultural values that affect the way in which they engage people. Also, he spoke about the habit that has developed in Barbados, where women cannot proceed about their business without being interfered with or harassed or their dress commented on in a negative way. But, Mr. Speaker, if we are going to address that, we cannot allow the steady diet of music that is created in this country by some persons that speak in a derogatory manner about women and what people want to do to women. We can't be talking about bumping and whining on their bumpers, etc., and then think that you are going to raise a people who are going to be respectful of visitors, respectful of their fellow Barbadians, their fellow female Barbadians. If we are going to be consistent in producing a people who are going to engage their space in a way that allows it to be the best that it can be, we have got to change that steady diet of that negative music that speaks of women in a particular way. But I want to put in context that the cruise tourism program that the Honourable Member has brought to this House does not exist in isolation. He spoke about it being part of the overall program that Barbados is seeking to pursue, that the government is seeking to pursue to build economic growth in the country, and that it forms part of the economic growth plan which we have put together as a government. This means, this should help us to understand that this works hand in hand with the trust loans that has been put on the table and has been executed by the Honourable Member for St. George South, that by allowing young people and others to be able to get a startup loan and creating opportunities in tourism, the marriage of those two programs will allow for more and greater engagement of our people in the tourism product. But there is another step that needs to be taken. There are a set of agencies in Barbados whose role is to work with entrepreneurs to help them in moving their businesses forward. And one of the things we have to do is to start and streamline these operations so that they operate in tandem and in harmony with each other and are able to take the entrepreneur from idea all the way through to enterprise. And I say that because, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I had a relatively young woman come and sit before me, a very ordinary lady, who came with an idea. And she said to me, the lady is from my constituency, and she said to me, Miss Husbands, I have had an idea for a game. And I have been stuck for a long time. I've not been able to find the appropriate agency to really help me take my game to market. And what was the game that this lady had designed? She had designed a tourism game. She had identified a number of places of interest in Barbados, and she had constructed a game for children to play, and it was designed to operate as a board game, but it could also operate on a phone, on a device, that children can use it when they are experiencing Barbados. And I thought that was such a wonderful idea. But how do we help her to engage with the right agency to be able to take that idea and turn it into an actual app and to be able now to sell it to the tourism market? This points to the fact that we need to do continuous work in streamlining how the agencies work with entrepreneurs, because without that, they cannot properly engage the tourism product and therefore be part of the empowerment program that the Barbados Labour Party is putting on the road. Now, to give you an example of the engagement that needs to happen, I was fortunate enough to attend the We Export closing ceremony. And this is about women exporting in the Caribbean region. And there was a young woman there, a descendant from Haiti. She now lives in the United States, but she came up with an idea to be able to make money, and she was actually now making tens of millions of dollars with the idea that she had developed. And what was this idea? She shared her story and she said, my grandmother was a street vendor, and she used to scrape a living, and so often there was hunger in their home. Her mother started with street vending, but migrated to the United States, and when she could not find work to do, she turned to the only thing she knew, and that was street vending. So she did street vending in New York. When she now was looking for something to do, she did not know what to do. But being of this millennial generation, she decided that she was going to make a record of all the street markets available across the world, as many as she could get, and put it on an app. And people could then, when they were traveling, find those street markets and buy from those street markets. And the vendors in the street markets were able to advertise on the app. And this was how she was able to marry the people in the developed world hungry for a real life experience with the street vendors across many developing countries. And she was now turning over $10 million a year, helping street vendors to make money. And this was a young girl of Haitian descent who had come up with an idea. These are the types of things that we have to look at to see how can we effectively allow a new generation of people to participate in our tourism product. And we have to start and bring them together. We have to let them know that we are here. We have to hear what their ideas are. And then we have to roll out the necessary initiatives that will allow them to participate in the expansion of the tourism product. And that is why I was so heartened and happy to hear the Honourable Member for St. James Central speaking about their commitment to expanding participation by every ordinary Barbadian in our tourism product. But from a foreign trade perspective, and from a more macro perspective, I want to speak about cruise tourism. The plan outlined by the Honourable Member, not only to add more ships, but to do home porting so that Barbados is earning a whole lot more and bringing in more visitors into this country, is really critical to our future growth. In CARICOM, one of the challenges that we have is that we are scrambling to sell goods to each other. Out of the myriad of goods that we consume, only 22% of what we consume is purchased from people in the region. And out of those 22%, everybody is struggling to set up the same production facility. Everybody trying to do beer, everybody trying to do toilet paper, everybody trying to do paint and pasta, and struggling with each other, and therefore dividing up the market so that the end result is that it's very difficult for those manufacturing concerns to grow to a viable size because we're all competing in a narrow set of goods. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, what I see is that cruise tourism and tourism as a whole could be the salvation to this problem. That if we add our domestic numbers, 14 million in size, and we add the 10 million tourists that come to this region, we would have a market size of 24 million people to sell to. And what is needed is economic analysis to identify out of the thousands of goods that we import, to identify those products that will be consumed both by the local citizens as well as the tourists, so that we're able to build production facilities that can achieve economies of scale. We have to identify products that would be used frequently, that people will have to buy over and over again on a weekly basis, so that the quantity, the numbers, would make it viable for us to set up large production facilities in the region to service both the domestic and the tourism market. If we can achieve that, there is another benefit, another possible benefit that could emerge from this. One of the things that has been painful to me, both as a representative, as a minister of government, and as a management consultant, when you move through the region, you recognize there is a race to the bottom, where you have these players, these international players, coming in and negotiating and at times squeezing domestic governments to give them more and more incentives to locate. They play one area against, one jurisdiction against another. And many countries end up allowing them to come, to set up, not pay taxes on anything, don't pay taxes on their imports, get tax concessions for everything. And eventually, a lot of those companies end up merely paying low salaries to the people who work in the area. But what has the country had to do to allow that particular facility to operate in Barbados. They had to do roads, they had to do ports and airports, they had to educate, they have to keep the place safe, they have to build attractions. And what we've had in the region is a race to the bottom. But the new opportunity that presents itself to Barbados to redevelop from Bay Street all the way down to Paradise Beach, if we could use the nexus between the cruise tourism and land-based tourism and what the domestic citizens consume to identify the production of a set of goods that would be used by both groups that would allow for producing it at a size, at a cost that is competitive. If we could find those handful of products, then it may be possible in our negotiations with new players to say to them, look, the region can actually supply you with those bedside chocolates. The region can actually supply you with all of the toiletries that you put in the bathroom. The region can actually supply you with the linens, because these are large orders that can actually keep a facility running and producing it at a competitive price. If we could achieve that, then the discussion may not have to be about giving you tax concessions on your imports from outside of the region, but that we can offer you at the same competitive price those same products that are Caribbean in origin, thereby providing the region with a market that will help economic growth and will not be draining our foreign exchange. And this is one of the reasons, too, why, Mr. Speaker, that Prime Minister Motley is working so hard with the heads of government at CARICOM, where they're seeking to put in place the necessary things to support regional production. And one of the things that is needed is a central clearing facility for transactions. And if we can arrive at a way to do that, where we do not have to use foreign exchange to settle our bills, but that the exchange could be facilitated, then we could save a lot of foreign exchange if we could get our tourism product to purchase regional products and local products for use in the industry. And this would give us strong linkages between tourism and the other sectors. So I just wanted to put that on the table for consideration, because I was impressed when I went to BMEX and saw the range of products that people were producing, and a lot of those products could be effectively used in tourism. Now, the Honourable Member spoke about the Festive Friday, and I'm looking forward to experiencing that. I plan to set aside a Friday to go down and be part of the experience. But I had the privilege of participating in the Crop Over Night Heritage Walk. It was wonderful. And I feel that that is a product that should be available to tourists all year round, especially cruise. Mr. Deputy Speaker, it was a journey through the history of Barbados. Kudos to NCF for doing an excellent job. People were thrilled. We learned things about Bridgetown, about Nelson Street, Mr. MP from the city. We learned things about Jackie Opal. We learned things about the experiences of when the slaves came here. We went by Gwen Workman. We did all kinds of things, and it was an eye-opener for Barbadians to be a part of that experience. But what is the challenge? The money to be able to put that on a regular basis. But this is where, Mr. Deputy Speaker, if we have Barbadians who are interested in starting a service, this may be of interest to somebody who has the money to invest in putting this on a regular basis. It would make money. There were close to 100 people in that walk, that first walk, when we went off. We each paid about $30. That was $3,000 in just the first walk. so someone could make this a very viable enterprise. And we can include, Mr. Speaker, the students from the creative arts at BCC, so that they have a living experience, a real-life experience of converting their art into a money-making experience. We can involve the University of the West Indies with their Center for Creative Imagination, where the students now can take what they are learning in the classroom and convert it into tourism products. If we can involve all of these people in helping to put on that night heritage walk, we would be doing two things: growing our crafts, growing our cultural artists, and providing an experience that the visitors will never forget. I certainly will never forget. And it provided at the end such an experience for vendors, for selling the arts and crafts, the foods of Barbados. When they were finished, you felt that you wanted to buy the things that were on the tray. This will be a time to sell the clothing. So many things that can be done. So I want to congratulate the member, and I just want to give him a reminder that in Holders Hill, we have another opportunity for another product that we can work on. And I am looking forward to when his team can connect with the good people of Holders Hill for us to put on some cultural events that we can be a part of the tourism product. I also want to inform him, in case he does not know, that there is a huge cave in Durance that also has stalactites and stalagmites similar to Harrison's Cave. And we would like to have it developed. We would like, in Durance, we would like to have it developed and make it part of the tourism process. So there is a lot of work to be done, sir. And I would like to encourage you to find some space on your calendar to come down and work with us in Holders Hill, that we can be please, please, because we would want to make sure that the good people of Kings Village and Hoyts Village and Durance Village and Haynesville and Halls Village and Thorpes get the opportunity to be a part of the rebirthing of the Barbados tourism product and to have a stake in our heritage. So I salute you. I thank you for the time you've given me, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I want to encourage all of us. There's a lot of work to be done, exciting work to be done. Let us take Barbados forward. I thank you.
You're obliged. Member of St. Michael Southeast.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg to move the suspension of the House for about approximately 5 minutes.
5.
5 past, let's say 5 past 5.
Question is that the House be suspended until 5 minutes past 5. All members in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. The House is now suspended until 5 after 5. Thank you.